This is the award-winning Lee Pitts Live.
The award-winning Lee Pitts Live is brought to you by Hodges University. Build the future you at Hodges University.
Southwest Florida, we're so thrilled to get my good friend here, Ron Jenkins, known around in the community as RJ. He's been in media in all different capacities, radio, television, online, talk shows, the whole bit. He's the host of CTV Politico. Good to welcome him to the show.
Yeah, thanks. Glad to be here, Lee.
Always good to get you. Ron, let everybody know we're good friends, man.
Oh, we're very good friends. Oh, yeah.
So if they see me and you going at it on social media. But actually on social media, you and I don't really have too many differences in philosophies, right?
No, we don't.
Now, I think that people don't know whether I'm a Republican or a Democrat. I'm just a conscientious observer, and I'm a person who looks at what I think is realistic and what works.
Right.
See what I mean? Now, Ron, you're a Republican, and oftentimes we see Republicans want to know, well, how did you become a Republican when you're black, you're a Republican? If you were a Democrat, I wouldn't even ask you, how did you first become a Democrat? As though,
expected.
Right. So how did you become a Republican? Were you always a Republican?
Believe it or not, John McCain. John McCain. I saw John McCain stand up against the Republican Party. And it was back when he was considered a maverick. Okay, the 2008 John McCain totally switched out on me, but I won't go there. But I started seeing that the Republican Party wanted you to be an individual, plus my beliefs. I don't agree with abortion. Most African Americans do not. But because the Democratic Party divides everyone into groups, the African Americans say, okay, we just support the Democratic Party, so therefore we support abortion. So we're at the point now where 56% of abortions that are done in this country, they are given to people of color in America. Okay, that is never what we were about. We were about building up our families and making our families stronger. So why in the world would I support a party that says that, okay, it is a woman's right to choose, which is right, it's her body, but she also has the right to choose at the time of conception, unless it's rape or incest or something like that. She has the right to choose at the time of conception who she's going to sleep with and take precautions so that she will not get pregnant, so that she will not end up pregnant and therefore go get an abortion. Now, there's nothing wrong with me thinking that way, but the Democratic Party says, no, we have to support Planned Parenthood. We have to support abortion, and I just don't go along with that.
The Democratic Party also supports same-sex marriage. Go.
Most people don't. I do. I'm fine with it. I could care. John and Steve getting married has absolutely no effect on Ron and Natasha. So I could care, and that's my wife. I could care less if two guys get married. It's none of my business.
What's the Republican Party position on that?
There again, it's not like the Democratic Party. And see, that's the hardest part when it comes to convincing minorities that we need to switch over to the Republican Party. Minorities look at the Republican Party the same way as they look at the Democratic Party. They look at the Democratic Party, again, divides you into groups. So they expect that the Republican Party also does that. But the Republican Party is actually the bigger tent because we have some of the craziest, let's say Appalachians from the trailer parks who will go out there and they will carry swastikas. They will dress like the Ku Klux Klan, all the way up to people who say that we should not be going to war and that all of us are brothers. So the tent is very large, and it's individuals. Individuals can accept that, okay, gay people can get married. I have absolutely nothing to do with it. I don't want to see it everywhere. I don't like to see a lady and a guy kissing on the corner when I'm walking with my daughter, let alone seeing two guys kissing on the corner. So in that point, as an individual, I could care less if someone is gay or what they do, but.
How does your religion and your politics interface?
Perfectly. Now, again, think of it not as the whole party, that because Donald Trump says something that represents the entire Republican Party, because it does not. The Republican Party is more about being an individual. The government should not be involved in individuals' lives, that individuals should take personal responsibility for what they do, what they claim. And then if you use the freedoms that you are given in the wrong way, then we're not going to make excuses for you, but your freedom, some of your freedom is going to get taken away because you have to take individual responsibility for what you do.
Locally, it's very difficult for Democrats to be elected.
Right.
Many of the minorities who are running for political office are running as Republican.
Right.
The general public may not know that they are Republican, but they are running as Republicans, but they move around in a Democratic community to get those Democratic at-large votes, and many of them do vote for the Republicans, the minorities who vote for the minority Republicans.
Right.
Why is that phenomenon so prevalent here in Southwest Florida?
It has to be because basically if you are an African American here and you're running, you have to be a Republican and you have to go to the white communities and speak to them because that's Republican. Now, one of my big things is always saying that as African Americans, especially here in Southwest Florida, we need to switch parties. You don't even have to agree with what Republicans say, but at least this way you can take part in the primary process. I have nothing against Mike Scott, but a lot of African Americans, Hispanics do. They don't like him. They don't want him to be reelected.
That's the sheriff.
However,
Lee County.
Let's be honest. That's right, the sheriff. Let's be honest. This election was pretty much over after the primaries. Mike Scott became the Republican nominee. Therefore, more than likely, no matter what happens in the general, because there are so many Republicans here and because of name recognition, Mike Scott will be reelected. Now, what happens if suddenly all these minorities become Republicans in this community? Now, during the primary process, African American votes are not taken for granted. Because not only do you have to now speak to the white community, now you have to come speak to the black community. So when Sheriff Scott says that he has no qualms and he thinks there's nothing wrong with the portrait of Robert E. Lee in the county chambers, even though I asked him point blank, do you understand how I may have a problem with that because I'm an African American? He can just say no, and his constituents are okay with that. Now, because if we have more African Americans that are Republicans, now he's got to give a better explanation as why a person who committed treason against his country is hanging in our county commission office.
Because essentially his voting bloc doesn't have a problem
Exactly.
with this position. Right, following on that. The at large in general, Byron Donalds, who's recently won in the primaries as a House representative who's African American in Collier County, he was able to win at large. What's unique about Byron?
Well, Byron was able to win also because he didn't have a Democratic challenger. So because he did not have a Democratic challenger, nothing happened on the other side. So during the primary, he was elected, so he becomes it. Byron has a unique ability to me. Byron he barely speaks to me anymore. But really? Yeah, I don't know what happened there. But yes, I do. But I won't go into it here.
Okay. But I thought you guys were like buddy. You know,
we were okay. I interviewed him and had him on and had a very great conversation. I had some posts from New Zealand about that interview. People saw it all around the world. It was considered pretty good. But I think it was, well, I don't want to go into it. I honestly don't.
That's another show.
Byron has this unique ability as a politician to give a historical context of why he came to believe what he believes. And I like that. I respect that. Most politicians cannot do that. If you ask someone why they believe a certain thing versus Donald Trump, if I were to ask him why he believes something, he couldn't give me a very good answer. Donald, I can challenge him with historical context, and he can actually come back and say, this is why I believe what he believes. I think that we are a long, long way from minorities trusting state and local government, mainly because of the history of our country, because of the federal intervention was needed so often in order to help minorities receive their civil rights. So there is this distrust of state government. Now, that's my belief. Byron, to his credit, is able to come back and say this and this, which I also agree with. The federal government was only fixing their own problems, and he and I agree on that. They came in to say, okay, we're not going to have slavery. Okay, but you originally said that slavery was okay. So all you're actually doing is fixing your problem. So the federal government knew in I think it was 66, maybe 64, when J. Patrick Moynihan did his report on welfare, he knew back then that African Americans' families were being torn apart because of welfare. However, now we say, okay, the federal government needs to fix this. We need the federal government to give us things and to help us and to do all of this. But we knew back in the 60s, even in the back into the 50s, that welfare destroys families. However, we've allowed it to become prevalent. The Democratic Party has allowed it to become prevalent in the African American community.
Okay, let me say something about welfare, then I got to move on because we gave Byron a lot of airtime there.
Yeah.
Get to a final question. I grew up on welfare. I think welfare is a good thing to help those people who need it and can move off of welfare.
Exactly, not
to
a
move
career
on
choice.
And step up in life. So that. Now, the leak, you have been outspoken about it. You know I've been outspoken about it. And we're still in that same position even to this day, that in Lee County Commission and on the Lee County School Board, we still don't have ethnic minority representation.
Right.
And here we are in the 21st century. Will that change in the near future?
It will not change as long as we don't recognize that we need to get involved as Republicans. I honestly believe that. And it doesn't mean that you have to become a staunch Republican. In the general election, you can vote for whoever you like. But what I'm saying is become a Republican, okay, for a little while, and force these candidates to speak to what you believe also. That way they can't just rely on whites to get them into office. They also have to now come and speak to minorities, and because they're not going to win the Republican primary if all of us become Republicans, they won't win that primary and be able to have that little cakewalk into office as it is now. So it's like when someone was saying a few minutes ago, Democrats, that's your roots. No, Republicans, that's our roots, okay? Republican Party is our roots, not Democrats.
I got to get you back for a whole show, man. Come on, Ron. I got to bump you out, my friend. I just let you go. It's always a pleasure to get you on the show.
Sir. Yes, sir.
And you made a point about strategy. It's all about strategy.
Exactly.
We'll see you next week right here on Lee Pitts Live.
Lee Pitts Live is a Lee Pitts Enterprise production.